Going to answer a few questions about privatization and nationalization, and then we shall move on to other things as well. So we're going to be doing a few revision series, a few questions. So our number one is going to be distinguish between privatization and nationalization. So basically privatization is the transfer of ownership. Basically, it is the transfer of ownership of public enterprises. It's transfer of ownership of public enterprises from the government to the private individuals. So privatization means when the government is selling a particular public enterprise, and say when the government decides to sell Mulago Hospital to a private individual, then that is privatization. If you decide to accept and buy the Mulago Hospital, or say Mango Hospital, say any other public school, then it means we're dealing with privatization, which is the transferring ownership from the government to the private individuals. Then while another thing we want to look at is we are distinguishing, of course. So while nationalization is the transfer of ownership, transfer of ownership of the private enterprises, from the private individuals, because private enterprises are owned by private individuals. So we're transferring ownership from the private individuals to the government. It is the reverse of privatization, and this is usually with or without compensation. So nationalization, take for example during the time of Amin, when the government took over the ownership and control of all the enterprises which were owned by the Indians. That is nationalization. If the government decides to do that and does not give the owner some compensation or some money, then it is still nationalization. Or the government can take over and decide to compensate the owner, so that will still be nationalization. So I hope nationalization is quite clear. So that takes us to another question regarding privatization, and the question is account for, which is number 1B, is account for the privatization of public enterprises. In your country. Account for the privatization of public enterprises in your country. And of course, this is section B. When you see the word account for, they are looking for reasons. So they want reasons in this particular case, and the qualifier for this is going to be 2. So you're going to look at the benefits of privatization, but you're going to present them as reasons why the country privatizes. Why does the government decide to sell public enterprises to private individuals? So one is to promote innovations and creativity, and 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 to pro creativity among farms in the country. Among farms. This is because, explain it, say this is because the privatized enterprises operate privatized enterprises operate more efficiently and allow innovations in order to outcompete their rival farms or the other farms, of course, which leads to economic growth, because the end result is it results into economic growth. Now, to promote innovation and creativity among farms, what I want you to realize here is that I'm using the word privatized enterprise. I'm not using the word private enterprises. I'm saying the privatized enterprises. So after privatization, the enterprise becomes a privatized enterprise. The public enterprise turns into a privatized enterprise. So used to, and these points are basically easy points for you, and so I would expect you to be able to get these points easily. Another one could be to expand the tax base. These are two words: tax base. To expand the tax base. This is because the privatized enterprises are taxed by the revenue authority which provides more revenue for the government, to help finance the national budget or the government expenditure. So basically, explanation of these points is easy. All you have to know is stick to the present tense, because the question is in present tense, and then try to explain and as few words as possible, but bringing out the whole meaning. So the rest of the points, I'm going to outline them. And so on. And the third one would be to reduce corruption. And of course, this is because these privatized enterprises are they practice more accountability. You find it is very rare to find corruption among private enterprises. Within a private enterprise, corruption is limited as compared to a public enterprise. When you go to Mulago, you expect to find more corrupt people or more corrupt doctors than when you go to a private clinic. So because the private clinic is driven with the motive of profit maximization, and there is an owner who wants to make profits, so it is very hard. So to reduce corruption, if we privatize all the public enterprises, then we are going to try and reduce the corruption which is in the country. Then another one is to create more employment opportunities in the long run. More employment opportunities in the long run. We add in the long run because, of course, at the present, if they are to sell, let's use the same example of Mulago Hospital. If they are to sell Mulago Hospital to a private individual, we may not see properly the jobs being provided, but in the long run, the farm expands due to efficient management by the private individuals, and you find that there are more jobs which are created in the long run. So you try to explain around that area. Then you can add more points and say to attract foreign investments, to attract more foreign investors in the country, attract more foreign investors. Of course, we have foreign investors available, but we would like to have more foreign investors, so we privatize so that they can get investment opportunities, and of course that would be good for us because it would increase our capital inflow. But when you're explaining, please don't use when, do not use if, do not use may, do not speculate. As you can look at my points, I was not speculating in any way. So when you're explaining, explain the way I am explaining out here, like this. Okay, so then another one would be to encourage the production, or to improve the quality. Another one is to improve the quality of goods through competition, to improve the quality of goods through competition. So you find that these firms compete among the privatized firms compete among themselves, which results into production of high quality goods. And quickly, more points would be to reduce bureaucracy, Of course, bureaucracy is the situation where there is long decision making. So that privatized enterprises are associated with quick decision making. Of course, that leads to makes production process more efficient. So yeah, that's a good point. And another one is to improve resource utilization. Of course, this is because they aim at majorly profit maximization, so they utilize all the resources. Another one is to increase what? So it's to increase domestic output. And of course, this same point can be written as to accelerate economic growth in the country. Okay, and then another one is to increase foreign exchange earnings in the country, increase foreign exchange earnings in the country. And then that is because of course the foreign investors who come in bring in, and of course don't forget points like to improve balance of payment position, to improve the balance of payment position. Write as many points as possible, that's why I'm giving you all these points. And then to improve the relationship, between Uganda and other countries. Improve the relationship between Uganda and other countries. And then to reduce government expenditure, on subsidization of public enterprises, since the government now no longer has to subsidize them, which is good because it reduces the government expenditure. Then to check or to control structure inflation. Find out what structure inflation is, and if you don't know then you can ask me. But if you want to learn more, then you should do a lot of reading and research. So those can be the points for today. I hope privatization account for is okay. That's our question number 1. Let's go to question number 2 after this.